Hello house lovers, a chilly morning in paradise. Before we go into Bonaccord House, let us take another pause in the shrubbery. Because remember the pea mulch that I put down? Well look, all these little peas have started to germinate, which is quite charming. But that's great news because as the peas grow, I can then just dig them back into the soil and they become fertilizer and mulch again. Win-win. And while we're about it, wow, the parrots are noisy this morning. Let us just have a quick look at my facade stripping. So here is the final bit. This is the deepest I was able to get with 3 applications, or was it 4, of paint stripper. So we got down to a fairly lightish color, but you can still see there's a sort of a pinky hue, which we're not in love with. So what we're going to do is get the boys to just strip the facade completely down as far as they can get, and then just do a grey wash over the existing ashlar, which will look much more like it did when it was first built. So a sort of sophisticated grey stone finish, a lot like the building that was around the corner. Anyway, so I'm glad that we've got to this point, but let's leave the squawking parrots and go inside. And what else have I been up to this week? Well, Matty's bathroom equipment shop is going to be open again for business very soon because there's some new sinks to add there. And I have removed enough copper piping to not only sink the Titanic, but to probably reclad it. Now that's all good and fine and dandy, but let us see what I have been doing in the room with the tricky, sticky floor. Now, remember that doorway. If we go through the door now, ta-da, here is the room that I have fully stripped out. Ooh, it's a little chilly in here, but welcome to the original bathroom of Bonaccord House. I would have been so curious to see what it looked like. I imagine there was a bath, but perhaps it was a movable tub rather than a fixed bath. I imagine there was a pump rather than taps. I'm not sure. Anyway, this was marked as the bathroom on the 1890s sewage plan, so about 20 years after the house was built. And I don't think this room has been revealed as such for quite some time since all these partitions were built. This is what I did to get to this point. Lots of panel removing, lots of joist removing, and not 1, but 2 sinks. Also, acres of electrical cable, which I've discovered you can take away to get recycled. And as you can see here, there was a little hole in the wall which leads through to the Chappelle Corby Memorial Bathroom via the Tom Ford Memorial Bathroom. But as there are no locks to those external bathroom doors, I had to block up this gateway in case some nefarious individual decides to come in. And as you can see, I think my cabinetry work is stellar. Why would we even need to hire a cabinet maker? How did these houses heat their water? I presume with boilers, which I presume was fed either by coal or timber, which probably would have sat at this end of the annex. Which is quite curious because we're going to use this part of the house as a powder room and then as a laundry. So really the usage won't have changed for 150 years. Makes practical sense. There we are, a successful day of taking things out. But now let me take you back into the hallway and show you what delightful surprise I found lurking in the corner. Can you see up there, that little patch? So there was a bulkhead traveling up here. You can see that I took off yesterday. And what it revealed was this spot of original wallpaper. Yes, lurking in this corner behind the bulkhead that was covering some old exhaust pipes, the paint had been affected, I think, by maybe the damp and the heat underneath the bulkhead, and it's separated from the wallpaper really easily, which it has done nowhere else in the hallway. Remember last week I was just wondering whether it was in fact wallpaper under here and perhaps whether it was marble to look like stone. Well, no, there was no evidence to prove that. Look. So I think the red floral is the earliest, and then there is this sort of green neoclassical one. There is this one here, which you can see closer here. So that had some sort of border with a design in the middle. And then there is this sort of, whatever that is underneath there. Anyway, but the earliest one, the one closest to the plaster, is this one. And let's just hope it's not full of arsenic. Now here's an interesting factoid that A lot of the very bright colours in Victorian wallpaper were achieved using an arsenic-based pigment. And the arsenic is still very present in the pigment. So some Victorian wallpapers, I'm not sure those colours are bright enough, but some of it is still very toxic and very unstable. So if you should come across Victorian wallpaper, be careful. It's a bit like asbestos. Just don't go licking it. The other thing my scrabbling about up here has revealed is the old bell board, which you can see now, totally exposed. So that's where all the bells sat and ding, ding, dinged in a very Downton Abbey manner. And when I was poking about under the floors, you can still see all the pulleys that go to the front doorbell that would have triggered some bells on here and the bells in the rest of the house. There we are, house lovers. Here is my stash of fluorescent tubes, which my task this week is to figure out what I can do with, other than play silly Star Wars games, but I'm sure there is somewhere very specific where you can go and get them recycled. Anyway, that is my task for next week, should I choose to accept it. Have a great week. Thank you for following my epic endeavours in the house this week. I guess the moral of the story is don't go licking wallpaper. I hope all's well where you are. Melbourne's still in lockdown. Things are still a little bit tricky, but we're soldiering on. Take care. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. And I'll see you next week.